Is there a feeling that just like 2025 was just like it was as worse as it can get, and 2026 it can only get better?
Yeah, I mean, 2025 was literally rock bottom. And it's funny that we say that because it feels like every year before that was rock bottom, right? I mean, this is the third year in a row that they've lost 100 games. But when you lose 119 games and you were, flirting with the worst record in the history of baseball, definitely the worst run differential in the history of baseball, I think it opens some eyes. And I think the Rockies for a long time have kind of operated within the shadows of mediocrity and have been comfortable with that in a way. I mean, obviously, I think the organization knows that they want to win, but they were not willing to put the investment in and the risk associated with winning and competing into doing that. And they were kind of comfortable with just saying, you know what? We don't have the money right now, so we're just going to, or we don't really want to spend the money, I should say. So we're just going to kind of live in this mediocrity world and be okay with that. Well, last year, I think it became clear that mediocrity was far from what the team was. And they were, the talk of Major League Baseball and not in a good way. And you couldn't hide from that. And so the organization had to kind of face the fire for the first time and say, we really got to do some soul searching. And, for the first time, I think in my life, I actually credit the ownership for this offseason going out and making a change. Now, there still is a lot of things that have to be done. They still have to change the roster. They still have to go sign, better players and kind of redevelop this actual team. But the organization was, by and large, I think the most dysfunctional part of this entire system, of this entire process. And they went out and completely flipped that upside down. They brought in some good outside minds, some baseball minds that were a lot smarter, I think, in the baseball world than the people that were there before. And I think this is a new look organization that, at least for now, has the people in there that can turn things around, that can make a difference. And so Rockies fans, and myself included, someone who covers the team, sees this as a huge step in the right direction, at least for now.
I'm fascinated by this idea of like an acceptable level of mediocrity that was tolerated in Colorado for so long. And obviously, like I feel like the Rockies as like an organization, they never really get a ton of national media coverage. Like you'll struggle to see any highlights of them on ESPN. Like you'll rarely see stuff from them on MLB Network. But this past year, like you said, it was different because they were flirting with becoming the worst baseball team of all time. Do you think that played a large part of just like, the whole idea of that, okay, this is obviously not working, but only because it was, going to be historically bad and the media was covering them?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, you lose 119 games, you can't hide from that. And I think when other people, not just the local media, but national media started to contact their sources and dive kind of a little bit deeper behind the scenes, it became really clear how dysfunctional the systems and the processes were for the Colorado Rockies. It felt like they were, decades behind the rest of Major League Baseball and data and analytics and, their hiring process and all of that kind of stuff. Just their systems were outdated. And we actually had Walker Monfort, who's now the vice president, executive vice president of the organization. He's the son of the owner, Dick Monfort. We had him on our show the other day, and I kind of asked him point blank, what do you attribute to how this organization got to where they were? 119 losses, one of the worst seasons in the history of baseball. And he said, he was very transparent, said it was, we lost touch of innovation. We lost touch of kind of taking those next steps forward because I think for a long time, like I said, they they were kind of doing the whole wait and see thing, right? We're a draft and development team. We can't compete with the Dodgers for spending, so we're just going to wait and see and hope that some of our prospects figure it out. And as we now know, with how competitive Major League Baseball is, that's you can't win like that. You can't compete like that, and you're going to get left behind. And that's what ended up happening. So yeah, the spotlight got shown on the Colorado Rockies in all the worst ways this last year, and they had to do some deep soul searching. And I think that's what led this organization to kind of turn the corner here. Again, you're not going to the playoffs next year. There's just 0% chance, in my opinion, you are even sniffing a wild card in 2026. So, with that in mind, you use every single bit of knowledge you can get, whether it be from a player, from a player's performance, from, the trade market, from all of those types of things to inform your decisions on the future. I think this trade deadline needs to be very important for the Colorado Rockies. I think depending on what we see from Brenton Doyle, Mickey Moniak, Tyler Freeman, guys like that, there should be considerable trades, at least considered for the Colorado Rockies, if not executed. Um, and I think, we need to learn more about some of our prospects. I just think this is a year where you close the book on some of the old situations, some of the old players, and you commit to the future. And so I say this now, and I'm sure, I'll be crashing out in the middle of July when our bullpen blows a 6-run lead or something like that. But saying it now, getting it on the record, I don't care about wins and losses this year. I absolutely don't care about wins and losses. What I'm looking for are specific metrics, specific systems, and specific organizational philosophies that we can see that point to growth in the future where this organization can build off of. And that's what I'm looking for in 2026. So while the optimism isn't really from a wins and losses standpoint, I think 2026 is going to teach us a lot about this organization and about the future of where this team can go.
That's very well said. That has to be super liberating. Just be like, wins and losses don't matter. We're just that's not our metric for success anymore. It's development and guys and prospects. I like that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm all for wins and losses. I'm gonna be rooting for this team. I'm gonna be, hoping that they get wins. I'm gonna be cheering every time they have a walk off. Like I'm gonna be a fan. But the more rational approach for me long term is you gotta play the long game here. Baseball's not like football where you go draft the rookie quarterback and they become the next great thing, and boom, you went from being a terrible team to a playoff team within a year. Baseball is a long game, and you've got to build over years and years, especially when you don't have the money that the Dodgers have. So the Rockies, I think, are in. They've got the right minds, they've got the right people in there. You just got to start building now. So.